Hi, I'm Shailen Bhatt, President and CEO of ITS America, and I'm really pleased to be joined by my counterpart in Europe, Jakob Bangsgaard, who is the CEO of Ertico, which is sort of the ITS America equivalent for Europe, and he's also the chair of the MAS Alliance. And we last year had a very exciting announcement at the ITS World Congress in Copenhagen around a partnership between the MAS Alliance and our newly formed Mobility on Demand Alliance here in the US. We've been having some really great discussions about what is possible for the future of mobility, how we can change the way that people experience transportation. So it's not just about driving a car, we create more options. And what's been really fantastic about our partnership and our discussions is we haven't had to recreate a lot of lessons that have already sort of been painfully learned in Europe. So Jakob, what are some of the key lessons that the Mobility on Demand Alliance can take away from the work that the MAS Alliance has already done?
Well, Shailen, first of all, it's great to be here with you. It's great that we can strengthen the cooperation between Europe and the US through the cooperation we already have between Ertico and ITS America as well. So I think what you can benefit from is the 4 years of work that we have been doing already now for the mobility as a service in Europe, and leapfrog on that and try to see some of the outcomes from our working groups, our white paper in this field. And also we have been through a couple of steps where we had to convince different groups of the mobility as a service community that's actually being part of it and being actively participating would benefit their business. These are opportunities for you to maybe cut some of those steps and to go straight to actually setting up the services and to look at the issues of data sharing, etc., etc. So I think we are very happy to be working with you on this. We are very happy to share all our experiences on this.
Yeah, it's interesting in transportation. In my time, I have found that we often talk about, when I was a state DOT director, it's our roadways, or when we were running transit, these are our routes, or as MPOs, we think of our plans, and everybody's very siloed in their part of transportation. With ITS America and Ertico, I think the good part about our organizations is we bring together public sector agency, industry and private sector partners, and academia. What have been some of the challenges in bringing those groups around, and how have you found success by having these discussions?
Well, public-private partnership in this is definitely key, because we need all the ecosystem, mobility ecosystem for the services that we are providing. We need them to work together, and we need to also convince them that cannibalizing on some of their business will actually benefit their business in the long run. And this is something that has been a challenge. It has been a challenge because they see new services as competition, where we see it more as an opportunity for them to grow their business. So these have been steps that we have been taking together with the different stakeholders to assure that not only is the business profiting from this cooperation, but also the cities and the citizens, the users, and because at the end of the day we're doing this for the end users.
Right, and I think that a lot of what we find is helpful from an ITS America standpoint, and we're going to try to amplify this with the Mobility on Demand Alliance. There's a lot of fear out there. There's fear from public transit providers that this will somehow negatively change their system. There's fear from some of the automotive partners that somehow this will get people away from their piece. There's fear from the public sector agencies that we're somehow losing control over places that we've had. How can we help to allay those fears? What are some of the successes that you can point to in that area?
Well, first of all, there was a fear in the beginning also in Europe that this was, first of all, from the manufacturers, vehicle manufacturers side, the OEMs, that this meant that we were trying to to push people away from car ownership and only to mobility services and access to mobility services. But it's actually not been the case really. It's a matter of giving alternatives to the usage of your private car. So that doesn't mean that it's giving up your private car. Anyway, there will be changes in the future on the vehicles that people would want to own, and there will be also differences in the future on how you would want to use your car. So it's a matter of we are changing, the society is changing, the services are changing, and it's being part of that change, being part of the disruption also now for the mobility sector. It's one of the last sectors that are being digitalized, and there's a disruption happening. So it's a matter of being part of it and creating a sustainable development of it together, instead of trying to protect a business that is anyway dying.
Right. We find that, and I think one of our goals that when we speak to our board of directors around the Mobility on Demand Alliance, it's in the United States, it's very easy to just get in your car and drive somewhere, and it's hard sometimes to take alternatives. So, there are different apps, there is not as much information that's available. And I think that one of our goals is to talk about the seamless mobility of people, data, and freight in the 21st century. Maybe are there some successful places that have done it really well in Europe that you could point to say, oh, here's a couple of regions or cities that are really ahead of the curve?
We see a lot of positive developments when it comes to new mobility services in cities throughout Europe. We see it in Hamburg, in London, in Helsinki, Antwerp, Munich, etc., etc., etc. But we have not yet seen a killer app. We have not yet seen a service that is actually across borders and that is giving the user the opportunity. So when you have a subscription in one city, you can use the same subscription in other cities. And that is, especially when you then travel between countries in Europe. And that is something which is really key if you want to go from a multi-local business to a multinational, multi-global business. Then you need to find a solution for the roaming and for the acceptance of tokens between cities and countries.
Yeah, I realize how unfair it is to ask you about who's doing it well, because you've got to go through a pretty long list, because if you don't name them, then somehow the implication that they're not doing well. So I think you did a good job of highlighting a good number of European cities. I think the other thing that you talked about there, and I think this is something that we want to talk about as well, is this, this concept of interoperability. I think that when we speak to, some of our partners, it's, I can't go from one system to another system and my ticket doesn't talk to them, or is there an app in a way to do that? I think that is, for us, the most significant way that mobility is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. This idea that you just sort of wake up in the morning and maybe you drive your car, but maybe you've got to do some different errands. Maybe you're going to a different destination. Maybe there are some friends who are coming and you want to carpool. Maybe you're very concerned about your greenhouse gas emissions and you want to do something better for the environment. There's a lot of choice, and I think that for us, the mobility on demand represents choice. How in Europe, how are they viewing these choices? Is there one that's rising to the top, or is it a whole menu?
I think as you need to make it convenient for the consumer. That's the key thing. They will always seek the most convenient way of traveling. And if when you see in Copenhagen, I know you mentioned several times during this week that in Copenhagen that 70% of the commuting is happening by bicycle. This is convenient in Copenhagen. In other cities, other solutions will be more convenient.
Right.
And that is the way that the consumer is moving. So what we are looking for is something which is more convenient than being stuck in your car. And That could be, I've tried it myself, driving in a car with a system where it was telling me, if you park your car now at this parking spot that is available for you, then you can go down, take the metro, and you will actually save 10 minutes by doing this.
Wow.
So this is convenient that I actually have a parking spot and that I have a metro ticket already in my app, and that my car is telling me this is a better solution for you now. We know it from navigation systems. If you turn right now, you can cut off 4 minutes on your travel time. Here we are talking about moving between modes and cutting off time. And it's more convenient if you have the whole package in your hand, as we have with smartphones today. You know where you have the ticket, so you have the planning, the purchase of your trip, and everything in one place. And that,
yeah, the one of our partners is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and they've got this great project going now. In fact, we've talked about it a bunch, where they want to reduce the traffic demand going across the Bay Bridge, and so they've got an app that is informing people, here are your transit options. But if you do drive, let's get you multiple occupants in the vehicle. And if you are going to drive, here's the parking where you can go beforehand, so you know before you start your trip. So it's really about providing information.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what is key. I think that this is one of the challenges that the Mobility on Demand Alliance is going to try to bring to the forefront. We have transportation agencies that have either been building and repairing roads and bridges for a century, or providing bus services for 50 years. And now we live in this post-technology world, and you have customers who want what they want when they want it. They're used to ordering things off of Amazon. They're used to just getting stuff, and this is the same concept with mobility. And I think this is something that we'll be really excited to talk about. We're going to have our launch event in Seattle this year in April, and bringing together all the stakeholders from the state, the city, and the county, transit agencies, private sector partners. We'll also talk about it at our annual meeting here in DC, June 4th through the 6th. And then we're really excited in Singapore for there to be this collaboration between the MAS Alliance and the Mobility on Demand Alliance. Singapore is a great city, doing a lot in transportation innovation, and so we look forward to continuing the conversation there.
The cooperation between the MAS Alliance and the Mobility on Demand Alliance, it really gives us the opportunity now to move from the European developments that started the whole activity of the MAS Alliance to now cooperate on a global level. And one of the great opportunities is the ITS Congress in Singapore, where we will have a close cooperation between the MAS Alliance and the Mobility on Demand Alliance. So for us, it's just great to see that we can help now to share some of the knowledge we have in Europe with the US, and that we can work closer together between Vertico and ITS America on doing this. So I think it's something that definitely will benefit both the key players in the US and in Europe on making this more a global cooperation.
Well, Jakob, I just want to end by saying that we talk about our vision at ITS America for a better world transformed by intelligent mobility, one that is safer, greener, and smarter. And I think that a lot of the elements that you've been discussing in the MAS Alliance will really help us. And please let your partners know at Ertico and the MAS Alliance that the work that they've been doing is actually having a global impact now. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in Singapore.
Thank you. See you in Singapore.